Hi, I'm Dr. Michael Craig. I want to thank you for being here. This is an introduction to life coaching, and I want to give you the very special information during this video, so pay close attention and watch the whole thing. But to start things rolling here a little bit, I want to ask you a question. And I know most of you have attended some kind of webinar, seminar, workshop to some degree or another, which gives you the idea that it teaches you how to be successful, how to make money, that type of thing. And the question goes like this, and I know most of you have probably heard it. If money were not an issue, what would you do? What would you do with your life? What business would you be in? And when I first heard that, I thought, well, I want to help people. I want to be a doctor. And I became a chiropractor. But if your answer was, I want to help people, I want to be a life coach, congratulations, because you're the person I'm addressing in this video. Now, if money were not an issue, that's the key phrase. If money were not an issue, what would you do? If you want to be a life coach, that's great. That shows that you have a passion for coaching. However, money is an issue because if you want to feed your family and you don't want to work a full-time job, you need to start making money in your coaching. I found out there's only really two ways that can help you do that successfully, steps that you can take to make that happen. And the first one has to do with knowing your niche, defining your niche. In other words, you can't be all things to all people. If you try, then basically you're going to get nowhere because somebody asks you, what do you do? And this is the elevator speech that you probably heard. What do you do? And you say, well, I'm a life coach. And they say, well, what's that? You say, well, I help people attain their goals or get what they want or get out of stress or whatever it is that you do. That's usually not sufficient for most people because let me tell you a secret, and that is that most people come to you as a life coach because they want to solve a particular problem. And if you're there to solve that particular problem for that particular person, that's very specific, and that's called a niche. For example, if you're a weight loss coach, that's a specific niche. Your only focus is helping those people who want to lose weight. The point is that when you define your niche, narrow down your niche, it may be a very broad niche, like weight loss is huge. But you need to be specific with that if you're going to be successful. If you want to be, there's some coaches, I know a particular coach who coaches stressed out veterans with post-traumatic stress syndrome. That's his whole thing. That's all he does. Very successful at it. Very defined niche, but people seek him out because that's his specialty. That's what he does. So if you want to be a successful coach, successful life coach, that's the first thing. Know your niche. The second thing is get certified. Now, I know in most states, in fact, all states that I know of, there's no certification needed to be a life coach. In fact, you could be a very successful life coach and never get certified. However, certification tells your client two things. First of all, that you're competent as a professional. Somebody else has said that you're competent as a professional. And two, you took the time to get the training necessary to become a certified life coach. So those two things are probably the things that you can do that are the most valuable if you want to make money and be successful as a life coach. Now in this video, I want to give you information mostly on the former, mostly on the niche part of it. And then at the other side of it, at the other end of the video, I'll come back in and I'll tell you a little bit more about the certification aspect of it. The first thing is about the niche. And a few years ago, I had an interview with Dr. Ron Owens. He's a psychologist, he's a PhD, and he's also a life coach trainer. Very, very smart man, good friend of mine. And we sat down with an interview, and I did this for a podcast for my radio show, Logical Soul Talk, at the time, and I used the podcast. So the video is not the best in the world, but it's got tremendous information in it about what it means to have a niche and how you can discover your own niche as a life coach. And so listen to this interview. It lasts maybe 15 minutes or so. Because it had 5 modules. I think I broke it down into 5 podcasts, but I put them all together. So watch the video, and at the end, I'm going to come back and we'll talk a little bit more about what you just saw, and also talk a little bit about certification. And I'll see you on the other side. I'm here with Dr. Ron Owens, and I'm Dr. Michael Craig. We're discussing life coaching and how to create niches or how to find your niche as a life coach. And that was a real interesting topic that we came up with. Because what is it that, for example, Dr. Ron, what is it that, how do you see your niche? I mean, I know you mentioned that your niche is approaching people who are empty nesters or having, what were the words you used?
People looking for their life purpose, that they've lost their original purpose,
Uh-huh.
like the empty nesters.
Right.
The mother who for 30 years, her sole purpose in life was raising kids, doing everything for them, putting her own needs aside, then suddenly
Right.
they're gone from the household and she's not needed.
Right. So actually, the way I see the soul of life coaching is finding out what you're coaching, or finding out who you are, so that you're coming from a place of not just wanting to help other people, but you're wanting to express who you are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like well, I coach people. I do logical soul technique, and I coach people on how to get through the barriers that wealthy entrepreneurs or wealthy gurus, the ones who've had this equation all along and are able to just sort of slide into it, don't understand how people can't just have a thought and persist in that thought and get what they want.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been on the other side of the fence where it's almost impossible for you even to take the action. It's like you're slugging through the bog where you can't go. So anyway, that's been my problem. So I took my problem in life and I turned it into an opportunity based on a technique that I've created to sort of bypass that threshold of suffering, I call it, into a world of a rarefied world of possibilities where I'm not just stopped anymore. I'm actually seeing possibilities. So, wouldn't you say? I mean, wouldn't you say that a life coach needs to really know who they are first in order to be able to even approach a life coaching as a career? Wouldn't you say?
And that's one of the reasons why someone who wants to become a life coach should seriously consider having a life coach
Right.
to help them make those decisions. When a life coach makes the decision of what their niche or what their target market is going to be, there are two alternatives. One is to select something that you think is marketable. Now, there are a lot of people out there who need X, therefore I'm going to coach in X. But the other choice is to look at yourself and what is your passion, or what is your training and your experience prepared you for, and then do your coaching within that area. I think you become a more effective coach there, rather than just going after the largest market and hoping you can get your share of it.
Well, yeah, you have to. I mean, it's like you were into real estate, I was into real estate. How much money did we make in real estate? I mean, I made a little bit. I think you lost some, right?
Well, I made it first, then I lost it.
You made it, and then you lost it. But the point is that I was afraid. I guess I was afraid of looking at who I was and where I was coming from. And I suppose you were the same way. I mean, we're conditioned by society to go after the bucks, first. And really, and this hit me like a ton of bricks, Ron. And I discovered that the key to your own fortune lies in your own problem. Your own. What's the word I'm looking for? Your own challenge.
Right.
In other words, that is your fortune.
Area.
Yeah, that is your fortune. So if you've got a challenge, and the best real estate people I know are the ones who, like Ron Brown. I mean, you probably know him. I mean, he grew up. He had a single mom, and he grew up, and he was poor, and he wanted to go out and get a home for him and his mom to live in, and he was able to do that. He bought a duplex, and they lived in half and rented out half, and that's his story. In other words, he was driven by a passion to get property so that stability could be there. My challenge was to get a technique to help me. It wasn't really for anybody else, but what can I do for me? What's stopping me from going to the next level and working with other people? What's stopping me from connecting with other people? And that was my major challenge. And what's your challenge, for example? What are you looking at?
They say that people go into psychology or counseling because they're trying to find answers to their own problems.
Right.
I knew from middle school or certainly high school what I wanted to do. That I wanted to do personal development to help people as a psychologist, as a counselor. And so that's what I got my degrees in. That's what I started doing when I first got out of graduate school and went to work.
Right.
But particularly in the government bureaucracy, if you're good at your job, you get promoted to an administrative position where you don't do what you're good at anymore.
Right. You rise to the highest level of incompetency.
So I became an administrator.
Right.
And did that for a number of years. But then after I had my own children, went into the real estate business specifically because I needed to make money to support my family.
Right.
Because back then in the 70s, people who worked for government didn't make as much as people in the private sector did. It's a lot different now.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really now with public sector unions and all that, but we won't get into that. So.
But that's why I went into real estate. But I still had a passion for teaching and helping, so I went into real estate education and taught real estate as well as being an investor.
Right.
And
right. I mean, real estate is interesting. Don't get me wrong. I love real estate, but I just found that it's not. I was approaching real estate more of as a love-hate thing. Real estate was it was a challenge. I mean, no doubt about it. It was a challenge, but the challenge for me was I thought I sort of actually forced myself to love it. You know, it was like one of those things where I was afraid of, this whole idea of a 30-year mortgage, that scared the heck out of me. I was like, what the hell is 30 years got to do with it? Why would I want to be, for me, that long-term picture was just like scary. So anyway, I got into real estate because I found it was very creative. There's so many different creative ways to be in real estate. Plus, my dad was an architect. I grew up fixing things and building things and stuff like that. So I like the fixer-upper aspect. My wife hates it, but I for a while anyway, I love fixing up stuff until I became exhausted with it. You get burnt out on that stuff real fast.
I mean, I enjoyed the same thing. It's not so much fun.
So what you said you knew what you wanted to do early on. Tell me a little bit more about your challenge coming up and how you got interested in the coaching practice or the therapy.
When I was in high school, I was assistant to the counselor. We had one guidance counselor at Norcross High School.
Oh, wow.
I was her assistant. I wrote an advice column in the school newspaper.
Dear Ron.
Dear Helen, actually.
Dear Helen. Okay, great.
Nobody knew who I was. I did that.
Right.
So when I went to college, majored in psychology, sociology, and got my master's in clinical psychology, and knew that was what I wanted to do, was to help people through counseling, through psychotherapy, that sort of thing. So when I got out of graduate school, came back to Georgia to find a job. They had a job that was available as director of a diagnostic center in Macon to do psychological evaluations on probationers and parolees and things like that. And
when were you in Macon?
I was in Macon in 71 and 72.
Really?
I was the chief probation officer for the Macon and Houston Judicial Circuits.
I was in Macon 74, 75, 76.
Yeah.
Interesting. I met my first wife in Macon. Wesleyan College.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's a little side note. But anyway, your challenge as you saw it was what? What was the biggest challenge that you've been facing that you wanted to solve, that you wanted to work on? You went into therapy, obviously, for that reason, or psychology.
Right.
What did you want to understand? What was your driving reason for understanding? That's what I'm asking.
What I was trying to solve was because of the way that I grew up. I had fairly low self-esteem, didn't think I was going to amount to anything because I was told that often enough. And I thought that I could relate to other people and could help people as an individual and help people solve their problems. I was fairly analytical and could go in and help people to analyze different situations and look at alternatives and try to find the right answer for them. And even after I went into administration and into the real estate business, I still did a lot of work as a volunteer. I worked with the Atlanta Battered Women's Shelter, counseling the clients there, and worked certainly through church and things like that. And even after I went into administration and into the real estate business, I still did a lot of work as a volunteer. Worked with the Atlanta Battered Women's Shelter, counseling the clients there, and worked certainly through church and things like that.
Well, it's been my experience that you've got a big heart. In other words, I see you as someone who is, you hold a space for people. You allow things to happen for people. You're not taking center stage. I guess I grew up sort of, believe it or not, I grew up introverted as well. I didn't speak to anybody between 6th grade and 12th grade, but I guess that was just mule stubbornness, because I didn't want to talk to anybody. But yeah, there's an introverted side of me as well, but I sort of tend to be a mixture. I get to be a ham sometimes when I get out there. But another part of me is very introverted and likes to be alone.
I was in my 50s before I was diagnosed as having depression. I thought I was just shy, and like you said, introverted, not outgoing. But apparently I've had some degree of depression ever since childhood.
So do you relate that to anything? Is there any experience in your childhood that maybe you could peg that on, or have you looked at that at all? I'm sure you have.
Well, I have. I'm not sure how much I want to go into all of that. But,
okay.
Just as a child, I had one brother, and he did everything perfectly, and I was compared to him.
Right. I think you mentioned that before.
And, he played football and did all the sports and things like that, and I stayed in the house and read and was chastised for that.
You was the yang, right? You were the yin, he was the yang.
Right. Yes, I was told to get outside and play like a real boy. Throw those books away.
Where is your brother now? Is he still around?
He is in Tennessee.
You all
He's
get along,
retired.
or you speak to each other? Or you don't
We speak to each other 2 or 3 times a year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So he's still out there, and you're still reading a lot, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so that your motivation was to sort of make it comfortable and okay to be inside and reading, or make yourself okay. In other words, and I guess this is part of my motivation, because I remember I learned to ride a unicycle when I was 13 and play a guitar. I picked up the guitar at the same time. I was just learning all this stuff, Even into college, I took speed reading. I just wanted to be the best. Not because I was into the self-improvement thing, but because I wanted to show how good I was, or how important I could be, or how
wrong.
Yeah, I wanted to show, I can do that. I wanted to be the expert in something, and that was not the right reasons, but it did teach me a lot. I mean, it did put me into, and when I actually did find myself really being good at stuff, my self-esteem picked up like crazy. But it took a lot of trial and error and just really busted my butt just to get to the point where I could do these things, And I'm proud that I did them, but the point is that, but really being a life coach is really the opposite of that. We're actually, what you're talking about is you don't have to be the star.
Right.
Being a life coach means you are not the star. You're actually holding the space for somebody else to shine, somebody else to be out there, somebody else to take the light, take the torch, so to speak, and you're handing it to them. I mean, you're basically saying, this is good.
Yeah, as a non-directive coach, you're not there because of your knowledge in any particular topic, particular area, other than the process of life coaching. But you're helping the client to discover for themselves what they need to do in order to get from where they are to where they need to be.
Right. Life coaching really is all about, like you said, discovering who you are. And your talent obviously is in life coaching and therapy and assisting others and teaching and that type of thing. And you're very good at it, and you have an open heart when you do it, and it comes across. And mine is just sort of, quite frankly, I don't have the, I have compassion, don't get me wrong, but I don't have I don't like to hold hands as long. I guess that's why I could never be a therapist. And that's why I quit being a chiropractor, quite frankly, because people would come in and, in chiropractic, you're supposed to see them 3 times a week for the first 3 months, and then 2 times a week for the 6 months. It's like, this is the protocol. Well, you got to do the program. I hated that. I wanted people to come in, because I remember this thing called the Jesus technique, where if somebody touched the hem of Jesus' robe and they got healed. And so I always thought, that's quite fascinating. How does that work? And that really led me into doing the logical soul work, because I wanted to know, what was it why does it take so long? Why? Because I've seen miracle healings, and what happened when I went to Sri Lanka, I saw it, I witnessed it, I actually saw it on a couple of different occasions, people taking up their bed and walking that were lame, or whatever. I'm using that as an analogy. It's a little more involved. But the point is that I don't have the personality to hold people's hands. I am a developer, and I do create a system that speeds it up, which I guess is what happened in my case. And then also I can talk about it, and I can explain it, and I love teaching, and I love explaining things and getting out there and sharing and writing. I love to write. I love to speak. I love to get out. So promotion, I guess, marketing, promotion, writing, creating, these are my fortes. Whereas holding hands and holding the space for someone to come in their own. I can do that if you want to be a better coach. I can hold your hand for that. And so I guess in the same sense, I'm a coach's coach like you, where I want to help coaches get to the point where they're powerful in what they do.
Right.
And
But
I'm
you need
learning
to see progress and get to a completion where they're on
right,
their own.
and I'm learning to hold the space for coaches to do that. And so I just find that we have different roles, but very complementary. And that you're basically providing the foundation.
Right.
I'm creating the little expansion and marketing pieces and things like that. So
And given the choice, I'd really rather be the teacher teaching a group than holding hand with one person in a
right. Yeah, me too. Yeah, I do very well one-on-one, but groups. Actually, it's very powerful one-on-one because it doesn't last very long, as you can tell. The sessions don't go on for days. I see them once or twice, and that's it. So I don't mind doing that because I guess when I developed the technique, I just said, what would happen if I just laser focus with this person and just didn't stop until they had this breakthrough or this understanding, and that's what I did, and it was quite painful in the beginning because I would go through stuff with them, and it was like grabbing a tiger by the tail. Sometimes it bites you,
Right, it does.
but I was willing to be bit basically because I wanted the answers, and that's how it developed back in the early '90s.
But sometimes it takes the continued support to keep them from reverting back.
Yeah.
They can make revelations, discoveries,
Right.
and it's just so easy to fall back into the old patterns
Right,
again.
and that's where I think you help me there because you can sort of help. We can together create a program that they can stay on track.
Right.
In other words, this is not a one-time deal. I can do 1 or 2 sessions and change people's lives.
Right.
What are they going to do in between and afterwards and things like that? So I think that's what we need to look at. Okay, we're it's Dr. Michael Craig talking with Dr. Ron Owens about life coaching, and we're going to call it quits here today. And I hope you have a better life. And thanks for joining us.
Hey, thank you.
Hi, me again. Did you like that? I especially like the part where it's just moving around all over the place and you really get a sense that this is like on location somewhere and somebody's tagging along. I was basically just holding the camera out like this and trying to make it work. As I said, I use it as a podcast, not a video, but I hope you get something out of it and it can help you pick your niche and get out there and be successful. Now, as far as the second point that I brought up, which is certification, that's Dr. Ron's specialty. Dr. Ron Owens is a coach trainer extraordinary. He's very good at what he does. He's a good teacher. And I sat in on his course. I learned something. And I've been doing this for a long time. So if you really want to be good at what you do, if you want to show your clients that you're very competent at what you do, and he shows you several ways of communicating and bringing your ideas across, and there's a whole curriculum that he's set out. Basically, it's a weekend program. It's about 16 to 18 hours. I can't remember how long. But you can get the whole thing online because we videoed the whole thing, put it in such a format that you can watch each lesson with the slides, with the information. You can take notes. There's a download manual, and there's an examination at the end that once you pass this, it's not that difficult. You can take it as many times as you need to, just to make sure you know the information, and that people that come to see you, your clients, can trust that you are doing everything they need you to do, and also that you're competent as a life coach and that you can help them. So that's the second thing. If you want to check out certification, if you want to find out about how to get certified, I suggest you click on the button somewhere on this page. I don't exactly know where it is, but click on the button. It'll take you to a page where you can sign up for the course. And as I said, there's an online training module, which is a fraction of the amount that he charges for live training, and it's the same material. But you can get this training very inexpensively, and by next week you could be out there getting your clients. So thank you again for watching the video. I hope you got something out of it. I wish you the best, and thank you for joining us.